Hello and welcome to DevSpot. Today I'm going to be walking you through conditional rendering in Vue 3. So when I'm talking about conditional rendering, I'm talking about the VIF Directive, VElse, VShow, and V4. So I'm going to walk you through step by step on how to utilize each of these directives. So for starters here, I have just a couple divs set up with each directive in them, and we're going to start with the VIF directive. I also have in my data method, I have a show text set to false, which we'll be using as the conditional element to display the data. So let's start here with a paragraph tag, and underneath this VIF header, I'll say sample text, and you will see when I save it that this text is displayed. So now if you wanted this to conditionally render or to have it render depending on different values that you might have in your application, you can do this. Vue provides this VIF directive. So if I have show text put in here, it will not show this paragraph tag because show text is set to false. So if show text is set to false, then it will not show the paragraph unless we set this to not show text. And there we can see that sample text is now being displayed because it is taking the opposite of what show text is set to. In this case, show text is set to false. So the opposite of false is true, and this will display our text value. So as well as this VIF tag here, or directive, I should say, you have a VElse tag or directive. And I will walk you through what to do with that. So when you're dealing with the VElse directive, you would think that you could simply just do similar to what we did before. Do this one, test text. So you would think that you could simply just go VElse, but let's see what happens. The else directives require being preceded by an element that has a VIF directive. Okay, so basically what that is saying is that you can't just have a random element somewhere in your HTML that has a VElse directive in it. It has to be following a VIF directive. Okay, so let's save this. So now you can see we still have show text set to true. So let's say I take this off, save that, and now we'll see that test text is displaying. And that's because in our VIF directive here, we have show text is false. So if this is false, else show test text. Simple as that. So VIF, VElse works just like that. So now I'm going to walk you through VShow. Now VShow differs from VIF in that VShow is just dealing with the CSS element of display. So when you're dealing with VShow, it's simply changing display none to display block, display flex, whichever one. Whereas VIF is actually like legitimately conditional, like it'll destroy and create elements based on the value that's provided. So hopefully that makes sense. So let's look into this one here. So we'll add another. Get rid of, actually, no, that'll show up below. So show test, do this. So there you can see show test is displayed. Now let's add a VShow directive. VShow, and it will be true text. If show text is set to false, it will not display the show text here. And then very similar to VIF, you can see there that it will get rid of the text. So pretty straightforward with that one. So like I said, the difference between these two is just manipulating the CSS and then actually with the VIF directive, destroying these elements and creating them based on the conditions that are set. And then finally here, I'll walk you through how to use the V4 directive. So let's start here by adding a list of items here. So we have mouse, keyboard, monitor, microphone. And what the V4 directive is going to allow us to do is iterate over our data here and display each item that we want to display. So simply type in our V4 here inside this div. So V4. Now there's a couple different ways to do this. I'm going to show you one here and then I'll briefly go over the next. So within here, we'll go with V4 item in data. So this is mapping to our our property here, data. And when you're doing it this way, you have to add a key. And to do that, you go colon key, like so. And then you're going to map this to the ID of the object. And if you don't have an ID or something that you can map each object to, I'll show you how to do that, because you can actually use the index if that's what you need. So in this case, I'm going to map it to the ID here. And then within 2 curly brackets, you're able to display whichever part of the object in our list here that you want. So let's go with item.product name. So this should display each product that is in our list here. So let's see if that works. Sweet, it did. So you can see that mouse, keyboard, monitor, and microphone are all displayed. So now let's say you don't have this ID here. That kind of changes things up just a little bit, but it's still pretty easy to put together. So instead of setting it up this way, let's go with V4. Inside the parentheses, you're going to do something pretty similar, but you're going to go with item and then index here inside data. And then you can simply set the key to that index. So then when we save this like so, you can see that nothing really changes. So let's actually, I'll show you the price here. You can see that it still displays each of the prices that we have. And that's just in case you didn't have, say, like these IDs. It'll still work just fine. So that's another way you can use the V4 directive inside Vue. So all right, I hope you found this helpful. If there's anything else you'd like me to go over, please leave a comment below. So yeah, thanks for tuning in.